I don't know. I think that they don't seem to connect the fact that Congress is hitting record lows in opinion, and they don't seem to realize it's because they're not doing anything. That is, the Democrats were put into power, and they're refusing to use the power. And this is sort of a continuation of the frustration over things like the Alito confirmation, when the Democrats could have filibustered and didn't. A lot of us are just sort of curious as to why this is the one National League team that doesn't want to get out of the dugout.
My theory is either one of two. They haven't figured out that there is an underlying crime, two of them, the Presidential Records Act being violated and the caging lists, or it was the anthrax scare and Dick Cheney going up there and saying to Leahy, go F yourself, and I don't know, maybe people are being blackmailed. Who knows?
I think part of the problem is that some of the stuff is embarrassing to Democrats. For example, there's a plausible basis to impeach Alberto Gonzales, with all of his statements made to Congress that seem patently false or misleading.
There's a new one today. I'm sure you've seen it.
Yeah, but more importantly, the easiest grounds to impeach Alberto Gonzales for is the domestic surveillance program.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of Democrats are embarrassed about that because it turns out a lot of them did know about the program and said nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that there is this disconnect between the public and their representatives. But with Alberto Gonzales, it's another example of this phenomenon. Here is a guy who is a virtual, Joe Isuzu commercial when it comes to, testifying. I mean, it is an amazing record of false and misleading statements. And the thing is, it doesn't make a mockery out of him. It makes a mockery out of Congress. That you can have a guy, for those of us who deal with high-profile cases, we operate on the assumption that we got to make sure our clients don't lie to Congress. But here's a guy who's the chief legal officer in the country, and he's virtually mocking Congress. Time after time, he's making statements that later prove to be manifestly false.
Yeah. The last two times I've seen him testify, I asked myself, why is he not, handcuffed right now and marched out of there? It's very hard to understand. You can hear him lying. You understand he's lying. I'm sure bigger minds in the Senate than mine understand he just lied to them, and it is kind of curious,
Well, there's a lot of things that Congress can do. One is, most obviously, they could start an impeachment hearing to look at whether he's committed obstruction or giving false information to Congress. Another thing they can do is to really get tough and withhold funding to critical parts of the Justice Department, to show some guts and say, look, Mr. President, if you're going to keep this guy in office, then we're going to keep our money. And it'll be your fault that things are not being funded, because we will not give money to a man who lies to us.
Yeah. Let me ask you some legal stuff here that I'm not real clear on. The President, through Fred Fielding, ordered that Sarah Taylor, who was a political liaison over there in the West Wing, not talk. Now, she no longer works at the White House. How can the President order an American citizen to shut up?
Well, actually, he can in one sense. He actually can't order it. In the past, former officials are expected to follow the President's decision on executive privilege. It would be considered extremely odd in any administration for a former official to speak about a subject that the President has claimed is privileged. So there is that tradition, but she's not actually required to do that. And in fact, her attorney has said that she wants to testify.
Right.
Now, what makes this really sort of interesting, if you come to these things to watch the car crashes, is that if she does not testify, the traditional thing for Congress to do would be to hold her in contempt. But Chairman Conyers at Judiciary doesn't want to do that.
Right.
And he actually has a long, and I think we do a good history of protecting sort of low-lying fruit. He doesn't like to go after people caught in the middle. And so he would prefer not to do that. But he really has to, because the only other person that could be held in contempt is the President of the United States. Because Fred Fielding and the rest of these people just give advice. It's the President that makes the decision.
Right.
So
now, it's curious to me because she worked in the political shop, and I understand that executive privilege is strongest when it deals with issues of national security and foreign policy. But she worked in the political shop. How, I mean,
it can apply to the political shop. It's just that it's not as strong as you noted. But the other option is that, and I think this is the best option, is for Congress and the White House just to simply get on the phone and say, look, we don't want to chew her up. If she really wants to testify, it's really you guys that we're after. So why don't you let her say she'll testify publicly and then have the Bush administration go to court and seek to enjoin her?
And why don't we have a rocket docket for issues like this? I mean, I was sued in the Northern District of Virginia, and that case moved so freaking fast. I've never seen anything quite like it in my life. I never did so much reading, so hard, so fast to get that case through. But why don't we have that in instances like this?
Well, there is actually an availability that is, they can ask for an expedited ruling and they probably get it.
Yeah.
But I think that the fairest thing for the White House to do would be for it to seek to enjoin her testimony. Otherwise, they're begging Congress to drop the hammer on her and to hold her personally in contempt. Yeah,
and that would be a shame because I don't think she has anything to do with this warrantless wiretap. I don't feel sorry for her. I mean, she knew what shop she was working in. She knew what she was doing. Karl Rove's emails clearly show that there was an intent and an execution of caging voters at the naval base. When Monica Goodling testified, it's just a direct mail term. I get curious. I started looking around and found the caging list. So it's really kind of stunning, all the lawbreaking we've just described in just a brief, 18-minute conversation. It's incredible. Well, thank you so much for being a voice that we can all listen to and get right on the law, because you listen to this president and, you just think there is no law.
Well, it's always a pleasure. Thank you, Randy.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Okay,
bye. Jonathan Turley, constitutional law scholar, libertarian, from a different political school than me, but yet the learning is the same when you get up to the Constitution.